Howdy friends and welcome back to Cave Story Plus. In the last one, we beat the game and we got the best ending too. In this one, well, this is probably going to take a lot to edit, but I'm basically going to be showing off all of the extra stuff that we missed in the main story. So stuff like the other endings, the other weapons that we missed, other items, special dialogue, just a bunch of different bonus stuff that you could probably miss. So, without further ado, let's begin! First up is the missile launcher. If you manage to go through the egg corridor without grabbing this weapon, you instead gain the weapon through the multiple ammunition increases instead. However, if you do end up grabbing the missile launcher in the Bloodstained Sanctuary, you'll be granted with a whopping 100 ammunition, which is really cool. But in all honesty, it isn't the super missiles, and it does start as level 1, so it's not that great. If you go without the missile launcher until you reach the labyrinth, however, you won't even be able to get the super missiles. But if you do gain the regular missiles and ignore the super missiles, you'll gain a 32 ammunition increase in the sanctuary, instead of just the usual 24. Next up are the two weapons I missed out on, since both of them require trading in the Polar Star and henceforth locking out the Spur, which is arguably the best weapon in the game. Starting with the machine gun, this weapon is much better than the Polar Star in every sense of the word, not just for combat but also traversal. Like the Bubbline, it automatically replenishes ammunition, but is arguably better due to the larger range and it having a much more predictable spread. Once leveled up, it deals more damage and has a larger hitbox as you'd expect. But things really start ramping up once level 3, since not only does it deal more damage, but you can basically use it to fly over everything and anything, completely trivializing most platforming segments in the game. Wow. You can even shoot it upwards to propel yourself downwards faster, but this isn't nearly as useful. Another cool thing about the machine gun is you can obtain an item called the Turbocharge in the Labyrinth from Chaba. This item will let you replenish the ammunition for the machine gun much faster. So you could pretty much fly forever if you wanted to at this point. Second up, we have the Snake, which may just be the least used weapon in the game, since you must skip the machine gun as well as trading both the Polar Star and the Fireball for it, which seems like quite a bad drawback. But this weapon can actually be quite useful, since it's basically a combination of the two weapons with its own little twist. Get it? Because it's a snake! At level 1, this weapon isn't all that great. The damage isn't bad, but the range is pathetically short. The main difference this weapon has over the others though, is the ability to fire through walls and hit enemies from afar, which becomes much more useful as you level it up. Once again, the damage and range of fire increases with each level up, but it also twists around just like how the regular fireball bounces along the ground, making the hitbox of this weapon larger, yet a bit clunkier to use at the same time. This makes the weapon more effective against larger groups of enemies, instead of focusing on more difficult enemies or boss fights. However, this doesn't really tell you how good being able to fire through walls can be. Being able to decimate enemies from safe distances, and completely cheesing some areas in the game, depending on the terrain. This almost makes it feel like a cheat code. Sometimes it feels way too powerful, but I will say, that doesn't make it any less fun to use. Now, I'll be talking about some of the more unique dialogue conversations you can find in the game, so that will include various dialogue choices, different dialogue depending on what you do or don't have in your inventory, etc. I'm going to be skipping some of the less interesting ones though, since it's basically just like flavor text and stuff. Like I said at the beginning of the game, you can actually refuse to fight Balrog the first time you meet him. That being said, you won't get any weapon energy, but that's perfectly fine honestly, since you'll be able to get more in the egg corridor anyways. If you go to meet Chaco in the Bushlands without getting Santa's key back for him first, she'll ask if you've met him and also call him a wimp, which is pretty funny if I'm being honest. After defeating Curly in the Sand Zone and telling her that you are going to kill the Miga, she will become downhearted and also refer to you as Mr. Killing Machine, which that makes me feel so bad. Oh my goodness. Going down into the labyrinth and meeting Booster after he's fallen, and refusing to take the booster from him makes him feel a bit taken aback and confused, it seems, but I guess that's fair because I would be too. But that's fine because we have machine gun skills! Speaking of which, if you do have the machine gun, you can go back up to the first cave, just as if you had the booster, and speak to the Hermit Gunsmith, mentioning how someone stole the Polar Star that he made, and hinted that it wasn't completed yet. So maybe someone out there found out about the spur because of this. The last thing I wanted to mention was the various characters who have unique dialogue if you have the Mimiga mask in your inventory. Interestingly enough, Curly calls you cute, and that's kind of funny. Professor Booster apologizes for the humans essentially destroying the Mimiga's island, and almost their race, I guess. Misery finds humor in your choice of headwear, and Charco proves that she's probably secretly an immortal being who secretly watches over all the Mimiga. That purple fur is probably not for nothing. Now, before we get into the heavy stuff, I'm going to briefly look over the various little secrets you can find in the game. Nothing that will be absolutely game-changing or anything, just those little secrets that you can find throughout the game to add to the experience. Firstly is the life pod. After Balrog attacks Jenka and takes the storehouse key from her, you don't actually need to speak to her and can come back later to obtain the life pod. However, after the boss fight against Rabbit Taroko, you won't be able to return here until after the Living Waterway, so it will be a while later until you're able to obtain it. You can even gain the life pot from the Floppy in the plantation, who gives you the life capsule if it isn't already in your inventory. Speaking of which, after defeating Rabbit Taroko in the storehouse, you're actually forced to speak to King and obtain the blade, making it one of the very few weapons in the game you are required to have, unless you decide to switch out for the Nemesis, of course. Another thing you can skip out on is the Twin Sisters Dragon fight in the Destroyed Egg Corridor, if you end up skipping the missiles altogether. If you don't have the requirements for the good ending, you are unable to obtain the 290, or the Japanese translation, the Nikumaru counter, since not being able to access the Bloodstained Sanctuary means it'd be completely pointless to have anyways. I was a little afraid of doing this in my actual playthrough, but you can actually survive being crushed by the rocket that Sue's mother built, and it's kind of funny, if I'm being honest. And pressing down is how you exit the ground, thankfully. After defeating the core with Curly and choosing to leave her behind, you can check the computer in the waterway, and it mentions that a child was born on 040808. I suspect that the date for this is August 8th, 2004, since the Japanese date formation is year, month, day. This is interesting, considering that the date would have been less than 3 months before the game was released on December 20th, 2004. From what I've tried to find, nobody has really found out what this could refer to, but personally, I'm thinking that perhaps it could be when the creator of the game finally completed Cave Story, but that's just my personal speculation. Speaking of Curly, however, if you choose to save her in the room with the core, but don't drain the water out of her body, her life force terminates partway through the waterway, and after separating with her during the Ironclad boss fight, she won't turn up in the plantation, implying that she's dead. This also is the case for if you leave her in either the room with the core, or the cabin in the waterway, but that's to be expected, of course. Finally, one last little thing that I personally find a bit funny is if you manage to have the little man from the cemetery in your inventory all the way until the best ending. Remember, he has his own family too. Speaking of endings, however, just earlier, I mentioned that the Mimiga mask is kind of interesting since you can bring it to various characters and they'll react to you, depending on who it is. This is not just the case for dialogue, but also the neutral ending changes very slightly. I wouldn't call it vastly different, but a few of the pictures in the end credits will actually change, which I find it as a nice little detail.
Now, we got the best ending in the last, well, in the final video of the main story. But let's see what happens if we check this bookcase and go back in time about a minute. This way, you'll be squished if you don't run fast enough. So basically, we are going to be getting the neutral ending. So instead of stopping by in this house and, you know, going and doing the entire sanctuary dungeon, you basically just run over here to where Sue is. Oh no, it's a dead end. We have to jump. I don't want to be smashed by the stones. Can you do it? Come on, jump as far as you possibly can. Well, with the help of this, I probably could. The island, it's falling. It's too dangerous to wait any longer. We need to leave now. And as we can see, all of the areas in the game, the entire island is going to be absolutely destroyed. So yeah, you can kind of see why this is a neutral ending. It's not like we didn't save a bunch of people, but we did inadvertently destroy this entire island. I always liked how zoomed in this is, kind of like someone is viewing it from a distance. Oh my. And we are slowly falling to our doom. Whee! Kazuma catches you. Wow. I didn't think you were really going to do it. You destroyed the core. We probably won't be seeing the Doctor a second or third time thanks to you. Peace remains. Let's go home. But what about the island? At what cost? Oh boy. At least it isn't the bad ending, which I will show off momentarily. And also, as you can see here, some of the, like, the credits kind of like pictures are completely cut off since we got the neutral ending. So we got the one where Kazuma is holding on to both Quirt and Sue and everything like that. But we don't have, you know, the Sanctuary Guardian, the Sanctuary picture, or like the one with Curly, the one against Balos. So it's a little bit different. This ending does change some things, like, as you can see, not all of the bosses are shown here, not all of the enemies are shown here. Parts of the cutscenes are cut out since they are completely different, like right here. Instead of Curly and Quirt flying on Balrog, you have Kazuma, Quirt, and Sue on the Flying Dragon, along with the others, which are still on the Flying Helicopter. Ooh, looks like Chaco and Santa are becoming a bit friendly there. Wink, wink. Thank you! And that's not the only thing that's different. Instead of Curly and the Hermit Gunsmith and Misery and Balrog by our side, we have completely different characters, which are mostly the humans and some of the Mimiga. And I like how there's like a sepia tone now on the left instead of it being colored. Like it's like a photograph of like, oh, you know, the island used to be there instead of in the true ending where it is still there. Well, that was the neutral ending, I guess. It's fine. Like it's good, but it definitely feels like, oh, you know, something feels like it's missing. And obviously, you know, there definitely is something missing. Well, next up will be the bad ending, so that'll be very fun.
Howdy friends, and welcome to what myself and others would like to consider the bad ending. So, we are in the location of the egg corridor once it has been destroyed, And now, we are going to have a chat with Kazuma. Who's over there? Oh, it's you. I didn't know if you were safe or not. I'm the only person here. After you took off to Sand Zone, we sped up preparations for securing an escape. It was then that Misery showed up. Sue was taken away, and Professor Booster, he disappeared somewhere. The Doctor has apparently acquired the flower seeds. But I'm not blaming you. The Doctor's victory was certain from the moment he acquired the Demon Crown. It's only a matter of time before his Mimiga army is ready to attack the surface. If that does happen, it'll be futile to try to defeat the Doctor. Even for you. You have no choice but to run from this place. Anyway, an escape is possible, but only by using a flying dragon. That's why I came here all on my own. For the flying dragon that I need hatched safely. Want to escape with me? Yes. I know, it can't be helped. You did your best. Get on. Hold on tight. And that was how you and Kazuma safely escaped from the island. Soon after, the Doctor would use the island as his flying fortress and strike at the surface. Were the countries of the surface able to withstand the Doctor's relentless attacks? That doesn't really matter. After escaping, you and Kazuma live a humble life, hidden deep within the safe confines of mountains, and out of the Doctor's reach. End? The Coward's ending! Woo! Yeah, this ending... Well, it sucks. You're just like a coward, you run. You're like, alright, I give up. I'm running. It does make sense if there's a neutral ending and a good ending to have a bad ending, and what other way than a simple escape? Don't care anymore. I like how Quote and Kazuma do survive. Like, it says that they did make it. They're not even like in danger of being attacked. It's like, oh, they're safe, I guess, but what about everyone else? It doesn't matter, I suppose. And that is everything in Cave Story Plus. Well, it's not everything, but it's basically as much as I can think of to show off. All the secrets, you know, endings, different weapons. You know, the missile launcher, you know, has some surprisingly different uses. Now, next up is going to be the challenges, but that will be for next time. So we have all these lovely challenges here. Two of them I'm not going to be doing. Sanctuary Time Attack, because it's just the Sanctuary from the good ending again. And Boss Attack is basically what you'd expect. I actually find it a bit easier, because you get like a bunch of health and like weapon energy between battles and stuff, so it's not that difficult, if I'm being honest. And Curly's story, once again, is just the main game, except you play as Curly instead of Quote. And, you know, their roles are switched. So you have to save Quote a few times. It's pretty fun though, I like it, because there are some more lines of dialogue, because Curly is still speaking, but Quote is still a mute, so it's not just like, you know, the main character speaks, kind of like Persona 2, I think? I might be wrong though. But anyways, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you in the conclusion of Cave Story Plus, when we tackle the challenges. Have a fantastic day. See ya!